2013 is drawing to a close, and you know what that means. GameSpot editors sequestered at all hours in the dark bowels of the building to determine our Game of the Year nominees. And today, we are announcing them. Folks, welcome to the GameSpot studios. I'm your host, Chris Waters. Excited to be with you as we announce our nominees for all the platforms and for the Game of the Year Awards kickoff extravaganza, spectacular, which is the technical term of this broadcast. Let me introduce the editors and GameSpot staff that are joining me. On my left, I've got Kevin Van Ord.
Hey, you made that sound really gross, Chris.
Which part?
The whole opening. You made it sound disgusting.
It's not a pretty process, but hopefully today we'll be able to keep it above the belt. Peter Brown.
Hey, thank you for having me. This futuristic table.
Yeah, it's great.
It's super nice.
It's really nice.
And on the other side of the triangle of power, Justin Haywald.
Hi, Chris. Unlike Joel McHale, I am not wearing an adult diaper today.
Thanks for that information.
And hopefully you won't talk
Just
about
going
crap
free.
either.
Oh, no, I'm going to take a lot of crap.
And Danny O'Dwyer.
I represent Europe.
Sure does.
Token. Just call me Token.
And of course, as always, we're excited to be live and having you folks joining us. And we've got Mary Kish checking in with Twitter, with Twitch, and all sorts of stuff over there. Mary, what's up?
Hey, I'll be representing a lot of the Twitter sphere and also the ladies, so I'm a girl. So you can please follow GameSpot and use the hashtag and tweet at us using GSGOTY, which is an acronym for GameSpot, Game of the Year. When you do that, you have a chance of being featured on our live stream. And also, and more importantly, you can actually win this sweet Forza 5 paddock pack, including all sorts of fancy goodies. Let's get the lighting right on here. Here we go. And it comes with nice things like water bottle. And because we don't want you going out with all this sweet swag, not look like a poser, we're going to throw in the game, too. So go ahead and tweet at me, and I will be giving away this at the end of the show. So keep your tweets coming.
Thanks, Mary. That's hashtag GSGOTY, and we're going to jump right into it now. The way the show is going to run is we're going to roll a reel of the nominees for each platform, then discuss them for a brief spat, get your questions and comments on them, and then move on to the next platform. So, to kick it off, it's the PlayStation Vita nominees. There you have him. So I'm gonna toss it to audio attacks. I'm gonna toss it to the table and let you gentlemen speak up on any of those nominees that you yourself were particularly passionate about this year.
Who owns a Vita?
We all own Vita. It would be kind of embarrassing that we were brought here to talk about the best Vita games and none of us.
All right, so nobody asked that question when the 3DS bit comes up then.
There were so many wonderful platformers, I think, on the Vita platform. This time around.
Rayman Legends was actually the one of those that I've probably played the most. Dive Kick is the other one. I already hopped on the Vita train like a couple of months ago. But I really love Rayman Legends, but I'm not really sure. It kind of sounds like maybe not the best version of that game.
Yeah, because it's got the Murphy levels, right?
Yeah.
And those are the more boring things that were also in the Wii U version, if I recall correctly.
The co-op stuff has kind of been nerfed as well, I guess, because it is kind of a fun game to sit. I know Johnny Chiodini in Europe was one of the games he plays with his flatmates a lot, just sitting down on the couch. And obviously on the Vita, kind of a different experience, I guess. I don't know, I didn't play any local multiplayer.
Well, when you're talking about those Murphy levels, you're talking about maybe 10% of the game. This is a game that's just overflowing with joyous platforming action, that soccer, like slap ball, whatever mini game that we just like basically started a ride in the GameSpot offices playing for so many months. But Justin, your point about platformers is well taken. Rayman Legends, Guacamelee. Peter, would you describe Guacamelee as a platformer?
It has some platforming elements. I mean, it definitely has pitfalls that if you miss these little platforms, you're going to fall into them and die, which is kind of one of the tenets of that genre. But it's so much more than just a platformer, right? It's also a brawler with a deep enough combat system to where you're not just hitting 1 or 2 buttons. I mean, you've actually got movesets to fulfill throughout the game and then explore, which is great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has that whole Metroid type of exploration, this huge world that opens up as you get more powers and kind of couched in a setting I think that we don't get a lot, which is the kind of luchador setting.
Yeah,
that Mexican setting is something that you don't see in a lot of games, and all of these PlayStation games really have a very distinct art style, which also kind of sets them apart from games that we might see on other platforms.
It was interesting too. I feel like that setting allowed them to explore the world of referencing other video games in a kind of an interesting, creative way. Some people found it vaguely racist, but it was just interesting to see characters like Mega Man or games like Portal sort of just seen through a different lens, right? But yeah, I thought that was pretty good for that game.
They were tastefully done homages to me.
They were, yeah.
Should we also mention briefly the fact that there are some games that came out on the Vita this year which haven't been involved in the categorization or in the nomination process because they've either been released on PlayStation Network a year before, like Hotline Miami, for instance, Spelunky. We kind of decided to. What was it? We decided
Spelunky's certainly occupying like a huge amount of time in the GameSpot editor pool of hours played on the Vita. But the rule is this game came out last year. It was honored and considered last year, and so it's sort of a port. It's an enhanced port, so there's co-op on it, and there's the daily challenges now come to the Vita version. But like Sound Shapes, like Flower, like all those PSN and Hotline Miami, those PSN games were eligible for consideration in last year's awards, so they're not eligible for this year's GameSpot official awards, though you may see 1 or 2 of them popping up in GameSpot editors' personal top 10s.
What game would that be, Chris Waters?
A little bit later on. But I want to check in with Mary Kish real quick and see what folks are thinking about the Vita nominees, or you yourself, Mary. What's going on over there?
Oh man, the Twitter sphere is kind of unsure about Vita. We have LVL39Nerd who said the Vita really needs more full-price AAA titles. So it sounds like people are still waiting for like what they think is the ultimate title that might even get them to purchase the Vita. So we still don't even have a lot of people who are like kind of really amped about the Vita winners. I don't know what that's all about. What do you guys think? You think there's something worthy of buying a Vita for anyway?
Is that perhaps because all these games are like downloadable? Maybe if you don't own a Vita, you don't realize that that's kind of the ecosystem that you live in when you have that console, is that most of the games that you play when you own a Vita, I think, are those type of small like downloadable titles. Even stuff like Rayman Legends doesn't really feel like a grand game on the Vita. It sounds
I think it's the stigma of a handheld platform. Everyone just assumes that the games are less than because they're on a little tiny screen, and they tend to be less grand experiences. But I think that's doing a disservice to the games that really are creative and done so well.
Speaking of creative, Tearaway gaining a lot of attention in the late part of this year, especially for its inventive use of the PlayStation camera bibs and bobs, the camera, the touchpad, all the gadgets there, the creating your own sort of crown for the Squirrel King. Did any of you guys get into Tearaway at all? Because I did, and it was an absolute delight.
So many of those games use those things like 3D or the back touchpad as something that doesn't really add to the game. But in Tearaway, like I feel like it 100% adds to that experience. Like there are lots of moments when you have to use the back touchpad to like bounce your character up, or you stick your fingers through the game screen. You can see like these 2 huge, scary fingers popping through it. It's done really well. Though it looks scary. It's horrible. Like my fingers don't look. I hope my fingers don't look like that. But I love that experience in the game. And like I feel like in that sense it adds to it, whereas some other games they feel like it's just tacked on.
And the last nominee, of course, Stealth Inc., an incredibly layered sort of puzzle platformer. Tom McShay, a particular proponent of that one, but a strong list of 5 Vita nominees.
And Dive Kick.
Oh, and Dive Kick.
Gotta love
You
that
mentioned
Dive Kick.
earlier, Danny, but have you been diving and or kicking?
I love Dive Kick. I'm not really sure why I like Dive Kick. I think it's because I suck really bad at fighting games.
You do.
So,
sorry, but you do.
It's because I suck really bad at fighting games. But yeah, that game's got a lot of I don't know. It's a kind of a dumb joke. I like when jokes are told way past their punchline, and that is definitely what Dive Kick is. It's kind of a really ridiculous premise, but it just, I don't know. And mechanically, it's kind of fun, but I suck at fighting games. So
it becomes its own deep fighting game in a way.
It's like a snake eating its own tail. It's like super basic, and then because it's so basic, it gets really, really complicated. Like each character's nuance. Yeah, so it's certainly a unique thing in a fighting game, which is a genre that I think has a lot of repetition.
And there you have it, folks. Our 5 nominees for the best PlayStation Vita game of the year. Those will be revealed starting tomorrow when we kick off our award winner announcements once a day, heading into next week. But now we're going to shift gears, head on over to the Wii U, and announce those nominees. Bowser, at it again. That, what the heck, man? Mario still going at it and still
Every
totally
time.
kicking butt. Super Mario 3D World. What do you guys think?
That's a pretty good Wii U game.
Yeah.
Is there ever
Nailed
really
it.
a bad Mario game?
Yes.
I mean, this one.
Oh yeah,
Which one? What was a bad Mario game?
New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
There you go.
I would disagree.
I know you
It was a
disagree.
good Mario game.
Mario 3D World definitely lives up
Eh.
to the Mario name. Like when you're thinking of like a really good quality 3D platformer, Mario World does that with furry catsuits.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that even a game like New Super Mario U and Luigi U were great Mario games themselves, but what Mario World 3D does so special is the fact that it packs all these great ideas and creativity into like every part of a level. Everywhere you look, if you really try to find it, there's something different to do. And it might be a distraction from the main game, but it keeps the game really fun. It keeps it moving along.
And the music, the soundtrack, this kind of orchestral theme and world that they build around it, like I really love the soundtrack that they put into this game.
Would you say this is like, because the last sort of big Mario game, I think, for people who aren't massive Nintendo fans like
Right.
myself, was Mario Galaxy.
Of course.
And that came out, quite early on in the Wii's life
Yeah.
cycle. Do you think that this is sort of as much of a revolutionary game in terms of Mario games as that one was?
I don't think revolutionary is the right word. I would say it's as good of a game. But I think Galaxy did so much that was brand new that people didn't really understand it at first, and that was kind of fun. It was exploring the limits of this new presentation and design. But 3D World, I think, uses a lot of things that they did in 3D Land and in games like Mario 64 and even a bit of Galaxy, but puts them all together in a package that just works really well almost the whole time.
And I feel like this mixes the parts of New Super Mario Bros. Wii, those games which are sales-wise much more popular than the Galaxy games, and makes it something approachable for regular players, for regular Wii U owners who aren't necessarily as ingrained into the Mario culture.
Well, speaking of approachable, how about the most approachable Grand Theft Auto game in years, Lego City Undercover?
You know what? Did anybody else even play that game besides me?
No.
But, that game's kind of rad.
A few
in
other
way.
people did.
But one of the
Nobody.
things I love, I mean, I love the series anyway. I love the series anyway, the whole Lego
Just the
series.
Lego
yeah, the whole
Traveler's
Lego
Tales
thing
thing,
anyway.
yep.
But they really took it into the open world, made it super fun to just move through, and there's collectibles everywhere, and so it always has that big, hey, there are Lego pips flying all over the place, and because of the way the vehicles work, you have to build these ramps, and then you order it, like, everything's just an explosion all of the time, and it's wonderful, and it's delightful, and the story is really funny, and they just keep layering on the humor in ways that I can't even imagine how a writing team has so much wit. So just super fun.
The Lego games do that pretty well. I think they add
Yeah.
like that humorous element to their games, which makes them a lot of fun to play, no matter how old you are.
They're usually kind of pastiches though on one thing. Like, how does Lego City Undercover work in that, like, it's less of, it doesn't have that sort of like Indiana Jones trope or like StarCraft, imagine that, Star Wars trope. Like, how does it work in its sort of its own little universe?
Well, it doesn't really. I mean, it's just, a lot of it's random. I mean, I don't think they're trying to build one enormous, myth or anything like that, or mythos. It's just.
But it's not leaning on any existing property.
No,
to sort of
no,
bring people in. Like, it's all from scratch.
It's all from scratch, but it does lean a little bit on the whole, like action movie hero,
Yeah.
Right,
action
okay.
cop and the evil villain, the mustache twirling villain, and that stroking a cat whole thing. That all stuff makes an appearance, and but you've got gangsters eating ice cream, and I don't know. The game's just plus it's super fun, and you kill some hookers. No, you don't do that.
You had me.
You just disassembled
had me.
There is a spot where I don't want to give anything away, but that's a surprisingly a little dark there in one place where you have to assemble somebody.
Well, speaking of dark, how about the game where you travel to foreign planets, investigate the new flora and fauna, then bring them back to your spaceship to be ground up and turned into your minions? Pikmin 3.
Delightful.
That's what that game's about.
You just said it all. What's left to say?
What's left to say? Olimar and crew are back. That's one that Nintendo fans were really clamoring for years. They wanted more Pikmin, and Pikmin 3 delivers. And I think using the Wii tablet really does some clever streamlining stuff in terms of control scheme and in terms of the way that you track your time and your map, because it's so much about that pace of exploration, that getting the most out of one day, but still getting in before the sun sets and the bad creatures come out to eat. Oh, you little tiny Pikmin. Oh, it's so cute.
For a lot of Wii U games, it feels like that second screen is really just something so that you can stare at that instead of staring at your TV. It lets you turn your TV off. But for Pikmin, it really added to the game. I felt like that was something that it would not have been the same game without the tablet.
Now, one that isn't necessarily, the tablet is more that I can play, is not so much an enhancement to the game itself, but more like I can play it on my tablet or on the screen equally well. BitTrip presents Runner 2, Future Legend of Rhythm Alien, one of my favorites from this year. Rhythm platforming at its finest. You guys get
Who's played Runner 2?
I know Chris did, and Chris, you introduced me to one of the fine characters from BitTrip Runner 2, one of the many fine characters. I think you should describe him in great detail right now to really give us an idea of what BitTrip Runner 2
if you guys want to see my extolling the virtues of Reverse Merman and his particular anatomy, you can go to reversemerman.blogspot.com, and maybe there's a website right there or not, I don't know. I just made that up. And of course, the last nominee on this list, Rayman Legends. We spoke about it just a moment ago when we were talking about Vita titles. Yeah. But again, a stellar, just exuberantly wonderful, fun game, and some rhythm platforming levels in there as well.
Yeah, and arguably maybe a fuller experience than the Vita version, perhaps. I love playing mine on the Vita, but like I said, I know lots of people who enjoyed the sort of sit-down local co-op experience. That kind of was the quintessential way they played that game, and you can absolutely enjoy that on the Wii U version.
And Ubisoft made such beautiful games with the Rayman series. Looks so fantastic.
It's gorgeous. It's like when you were growing up and you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
play interactive cartoons, and we've kind of reached that point now.
That's the engine that they have in-house right now. It does just that. It lets artists create games, just create art, and then they use those assets to make a game out of it. It's just brilliant. And I think Rayman Legends is a great example of what you can do.
All right, next we're going to hop to the handheld realm again, sticking with Nintendo. Going to look at the nominees for Nintendo 3DS Game of 2013. There you have it, folks. 5 best games for the Nintendo 3DS this year. And before we get to talking about them, I want to let you know Mary is taking your comments via Twitter using the hashtag GSGOTY, Facebook comments, the twitch.tv/GameSpot chat. And so chime in, let us know what you think your favorite game from that list is, and we'll check in, see what you all folks are saying in just a second. But first, I'm going to toss it to the triangle. Gentlemen, the Nintendo 3DS. Danny, you can sit this one out.
I love this one because it's got the 3 games in it that I've lost more time with friends to than anything else. Pokemon, Animal Crossing, and Zelda. It's like everyone's
You've lost
just
friends to those games.
people just don't talk to me anymore. It's just, I'm on my DS, Daddy, leave me alone. So you please explain to me, you fine young gentlemen, why these games have been taking away my social life.
Individually, any other year, I think every one of these games could be my personal game of the year. I spend a lot of time on handhelds, especially the 3DS, because of the commute here and back to work. But I was completely and utterly taken away with The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. You know, as a huge Zelda fan, I've played every Zelda game to death, and I thought that this is a game that was going to be absolutely terrible. Because how can you live up to A Link to the Past, which is one of the best Zelda games? And this game does it in every respect, from the music and the art style, which I absolutely loved, the gameplay, which introduces a different way of gathering items than in any of the other previous games, and I really loved it. Kevin, you were saying that you were not a Zelda fan before this.
I wasn't. I mean, I like Zelda, but I'm not one of the Zelda enthusiasts in the office. You know, that's you and Tom and some other folks. But Peter too. You are a part of other folks. You know, it's like the professor and
I'd like a shout out now and again.
You know, sometimes you say all the rest instead of professor and Mary. So, but in any case, like I'm not a big Zelda guy, and I freaking love this game. And I don't have it doesn't have the nostalgic value for me. Like I don't get shivers when I hear like Link pull out the Master Sword or anything. Like that's
that
just
Hyrule theme when it comes out.
That stuff
touch
doesn't.
Your soul.
Doesn't give you gas.
No. Maybe.
Okay.
But you know, and so nostalgia aside, I think you can just say, hey, this is a great game. You just say that outside of Zelda, like, hey, this game's great.
It's more like the original game, where you can basically, you hop in, you can grab items in any order you want, just explore the world, explore the dungeons. Whereas all of the previous games, especially the 3D ones, have been very, very linear experiences.
What about Pokemon then, in this sort of the same vein? Any of you guys played Pokemon in the past?
Yeah, I played Pokemon Red and Blue, you know, as a kid on the original Game Boy, and I really liked it back then. I started playing on the Game Boy Color a little bit, and then totally just dropped out of the series. X and Y for me was really exciting because it opened things up in a new way. You no longer had this top-down camera, and they promised new ways to level up your monsters, and that worked. But I guess I didn't love the game, but I did like it a lot.
I love it as a reintroduction to Pokemon. Like, it doesn't really reinvent the series. It doesn't make it any, like, if you hate Pokemon, you're not going to like this Pokemon anymore. But for someone who's a fan of Pokemon and really enjoys the RPG, the world that they put together, I enjoy going back into it and collecting a lot of the Pokemon that you're most familiar with. So, like, right at the beginning of the game, you can get a Pikachu. I love Pikachu because he's yellow and adorable.
Who doesn't love Pikachu, Haywald? Well, we've got one of the more divisive 3DS games in the office to discuss in just a second. But Mary, how are folks chiming in on the 3DS front? What do they think is the top 3DS game of the year?
Well, by and far, a lot of people are saying Pokemon X and Y. I think there's pretty much cult following behind Pokemon. You can't really argue with that.
They've done a good job cultivating that over the years.
Yeah, they've done it. They're all over. And, you know, don't forget, you guys, to tweet at the hashtag, you know, GSGOTY, so that you can win these awesome prizes and get mentioned. We also have a lot of people who are like kind of upping the 3DS. We had Saluk64007 saying so many good 3DS games this year, and Joe Maritaiki saying 3DS is killing it. Woo! So obviously, people are really interested. It kind of seems like 3DS had a lot of good titles this year. They're like sneaking up on people.
It totally did. And one of my personal favorites, Fire Emblem Awakening, I poured so many hours into that, then re-upped and went back for more when it became this delightful breeding experiment.
What? What?
See, you're missing out, O'Dwyer.
These Nintendo games are weird.
But
man.
the tactical battles in that game are just so engrossing. One false move and you lose this character who you could have been putting hours and hours into, and you know they have relationships with these other people, and that game was a little heartbreaking, but so good.
Yeah, I'm glad actually, you know, it came out, and B, it did so well, because this is only the 4th game in the series we've ever gotten in America.
Oh, really?
And there are around, I'd say, like 10 different games. including remakes and such. So I can't wait to see more Fire Emblem. Assuming, actually, well, they're coming out with a Shin Megami Tensei Fire Emblem crossover game.
They are.
I can't even imagine what
Oh
that's
my
going
goodness,
to be.
that's gonna blow Pete. You're gonna have a moment.
And this one really captured a wider range of fans, I feel like, than previous games in the series, which I think is great because it is a no-holds-bar hardcore strategy game that you wouldn't think would be that popular, but like it is insanely popular.
And exactly like Animal Crossing, no holds barred, hardcore, do mundane tasks, and live a boring life game.
You'd imagine so, considering the amount of
Ayo.
time you guys have like piled into that game over the past.
I
couple of
play
months.
every day. God, I love Animal
You're
Crossing.
the only person I know who still
Yes.
plays that game.
Got
and-
about 15, 30 minutes.
enthusiasm.
I love Animal Crossing. I love my little town. I kick it people out every now and then and get some more people in.
I'm still playing the one on GameCube.
You're a
so I got you.
dictator.
I am a dictator.
Look,
if I don't like
sometimes-
your shirt, get out of my town.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta, make sure your town has the right quality of bird people in it.
It's a game that lasts all year because there are so many different things you can keep doing. Like right now, or we just went through Thanksgiving, winter's about to come, it's gonna snow in my town. It's like every day is a little bit different. I'm not gonna play for hours every day, but I can spend 15, 20 minutes and see something a little new, a little different, buy some new things for my house. It's fun.
And finally, we have Luigi's Mansion: Dark Moon, another game that has roots. All of these Nintendo games have roots in the Nintendo verse. And Dark Moon came out this year. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Are any of those people sitting at this table?
I mean, it's a good game. The first game was also really, really good. I enjoyed the whole Luigi's Mansion exploring, and they made some improvements.
God bless you, Justin.
There you go. They made some improvements.
We have some avid Luigi's
High
Mansion
praise.
fans on staff, and so it deservedly earned a place in our top 5 3DS games of the year. Now we're heading on to the next generation, which is now technically the current generation, PlayStation 4 nominees. Hashtag GS Game of the Year. Let us know which one of those 5 titles would win your PlayStation 4 Game of the Year. And let's talk to these guys right here about which ones they got into this year. Gentlemen.
So the PS4 had some specific games that were made specifically for the PlayStation, but a lot of the best games are the games that we got on every console.
Yeah, that's true. We've only got one on this list that was actually an exclusive game, and that's Resogun.
And it was a great game.
Yeah, it's. I'm not into it as much as you guys are, but
I'm sorry.
explain to me why you. Yeah, no.
It's like it's Defender meets Geometry Wars, and
Yeah, but I mean, strip of those references aside, too. It's just the game is really sound mechanically. It's focused. Like you have really just one objective, and that's survival. But then there's stuff you can do along the way. And I just, man, it's so easy to get so confident and like feel all powerful, and then just get crushed. And though that sucks, you just feel you're like, damn it, I'm gonna get back and do a really good job. And the game, it's really easy just to get right back in and feel powerful yet again really quickly.
And then there's that moment where she goes, multiplier lost. And I'm like, oh no, you've taken it away from me.
Yeah, this is
I like
the
Resogun
chase
a
for the
lot.
top of the leaderboard, and it's a beautiful looking game using voxels, which maybe most people don't understand. Unlike polygons, these are like volumetric cubes, and like a pixel, they're used to create all these different, the buildings, the ships, the enemies, everything you see in the world is made up from these tiny little boxes. And whenever you destroy something, they all crumble around
It's
it.
so satisfying to see that
It's
happen.
so nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
It's just like someone coming in and kicking the level apart whenever
Yes.
you beat the level,
Yes.
and It
That's
feels really good,
glorious.
actually. But Justin, to your point, the rest of these nominees are all multi-platform titles, but they're all great games, and they all are doing really well on the PlayStation 4. Kevin, a series that's near and dear to your heart, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Maybe I know a little bit about Assassin's Creed. Maybe a little bit.
Don't you play coy with me, Van Ord? Talk to me about pirates.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because a lot of people really didn't like Assassin's Creed 3, and I feel like, I mean, Assassin's Creed 4 is awesome, and it's interesting because, and I've said this before, but I feel like Assassin's Creed 4 is to Assassin's Creed 3 what Assassin's Creed 2 was to Assassin's Creed 1.
Yeah.
In other words, it takes all of the new things introduced in Assassin's Creed 3 and then makes them good.
Yeah, I don't think you could have
makes
had
them really
4
great. Yeah,
without having 3.
no, you couldn't have. But the whole thing is really
Well,
interesting. I mean, you wouldn't. I wouldn't necessarily even call this series about assassins anymore, really, because I mean, and even the game sets that up from the very beginning, is that you're playing as a character who's not an assassin. That's one of the most interesting parts.
I absolutely love 4. I was not a fan of 3. I feel like what I like about it is that it's not necessarily, it's not just that it's this, like, you know, high resolution and that it's got a grander world and there's no loading or anything like that. Like, it's just a really clever mechanical game. It just works really well. You always want to go exploring and upgrade your ship, and then apart from that, it kind of has all the Assassin's Creed tropes that we've enjoyed, and it's kind of gotten rid of a lot of the ones that were maybe a bit annoying as well. Like the story, you just jump right into it. I think it's really good, and it also sheds a lot of the Animus stuff, or kind of, it's almost as if the writers now are kind of making up for it in a way, and I kind of really appreciated that because I wasn't a fan of that whole trope whatsoever. So
I sort of miss it.
I just think it's, I think it's
miss that stuff.
Well, Danny, I'm going to make you talk about FIFA 14 in just a second, but
Yeah.
first let's toss it over to Mary and see what you guys are talking about on Facebook, on Twitter, and in the chat. What PlayStation 4 games are people getting, like, yay about?
Yeah, that's right. Checking out everything that's got the hashtag GSGOTY. And I'm seeing a lot of, there's been some shots fired. Someone called you noobs. CT Harley said, don't be noobs, Battlefield 4. FTW.
I'm sorry, Zori.
That would be
We all know
Zori.
what that means.
GameSpot Australia.
It's aggressive.
Zorine. We will talk about Battlefield 4 momentarily.
Aggressively wanting to win. We've had a lot of Resogun. People saying it's awesome, it's addictive, it's amazing.
anyone shouting for Killzone out of interest.
Not too many kill zones. Oh, we have shots fired against Battlefield. Now he's saying AK-47 bro. That's a good name. Says Battlefield is the hipster's interpretation of an FPS.
What does that? What does that even mean?
Sounds intense. Sounds like there's a battle
But
going
with
on.
really tight neon
And then a
clothing?
lot of people for The Last of Us. Sounds like a lot of people are saying Game of the Year, Last of Us.
Well, we'll be talking
Right.
about The Last of Us in just a few moments on the PlayStation 3 section, maybe, if it's a nominee that we announce, which it might
Can you
be
see it in the
or
future?
not maybe going to be.
Oh yeah, maybe.
But yeah, Killzone, a conspicuous absence on this as a big exclusive. But
Yeah.
when it comes to multiplayer shooters, I think throughout the office, it was really Battlefield 4 that caught all of our trigger fingers.
Yeah, totally. I got Killzone and Battlefield 4 on launch, and I enjoyed Killzone. The single player, you could take it or leave. Very pretty, but it was certainly, it wasn't bad. It was okay. It was bad in parts. It
Thank
slowed
you.
down really badly in parts. But the multiplayer in Killzone was really good. But in terms of like Battlefield 4, it's just, I don't know. It's when you play that game on a console, it feels like the first time you've played that type of game on a console. In terms of like the size of the maps, the size of the player count finally being up there. If it wasn't so buggy, maybe a lot of people have had issues and whatnot. Oddly enough, me and Chris have kind of dodged all of those.
I've had
and
like
I play on
maybe
3
one or two.
platforms.
Yeah, I have
don't
not
know.
had it. We've lucked out for sure, but
We've
even
had
when
so many news stories that we've had to write up about the number of patches that have
Yeah.
come out, the users who are just commenting constantly in our comment section going, you have to call out EA for having a buggy Battlefield 4 experience that I just cannot play. I haven't had problems with it either.
it's tough to weigh these things because then,
Yeah.
our personal experiences are different, but, you guys are suffering a little bit. But hey, Battlefield 4, no matter how you scratch it, once you're in a match, there's nothing like it, and it's definitely deserving of one of our nominations. And we're going to talk about the rest of these nominees in depth a little later on. We're actually moving on to the Xbox One. What do you think about that? Another next-gen system. Xbox One nominees, roll them.
sound effect.
Yeah, buddy. So, for multi-platform overlaps there, actually, with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 nominees. That's Assassin's Creed 4, Battlefield 4 that we talked about a little bit during the last discussion. But let's talk about FIFA 14 and NBA 2K14 and why they made the list this year.
FIFA 14 is great. Football game. I said it. Football. Football. Shots fired.
What, Madden? I'm so confused.
FIFA 14 is great. Whenever there's been like a console generational shift, the FIFA game that came out on the new console has been absolute garbage. It's been just the way it's always happened. I think FIFA 14 is more of an incremental jump than perhaps the standard edition or the Xbox 360 versions or whatever of FIFA 13 have been on their or FIFA 14 on FIFA 13. Like, it's just, I moved over here, and the first time I booted up that game, I went straight to an Arsenal game to the Emirates, and I could hear that crowd scream exactly how I remember before the game would start. And then you score a goal, you actually see them all lift up and go crazy. And between that and the realistic kind of the new controls in relation to like player movement and whatnot, that kind of make it feel a bit more, I don't know, less obvious attack, and now I'm defending and now I'm attacking than older FIFA games have been. It's really good. I really enjoy it a lot.
And then there's NBA 2K14, the game which, from my perspective, earns the distinction of being the game I most frequently mistake for being actually TV and the real thing.
It looks amazing
It is
on the
It
screen.
really does.
Oh, and also it's the game going up against a really terrible other basketball game.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, there's just no
so bad.
comparison.
Yeah.
Every now and then I do still, like, you'll see a pass to go to a player and he's just, like, kind of over here, and then he still tries to pass. Like, there's still stupid things that happen that you go, oh, yeah, no, this is totally a video game. But if you, like, look at the floor, it looks totally like a real basketball.
But those things only kind of stand out because the rest of it is so
Because it's so good.
outrageously polished.
It looks so realistic, and it plays realistically.
It makes me want to know and give a crap about basketball. Put it that way.
Me
And
too.
that isn't a monumental achievement. I don't know what is. Speaking of high achievements, earning a 9 out of 10 on GameSpot.com from Sean McGinnis, the reviewer. Forza Motorsport 5. Don't want to do any disrespect. System exclusive, highest rated system exclusive on the next gen, and also a game that we're giving away to you folks if you tweet at #GSGOTY. Mary, isn't that right?
It's true.
Yay!
Oh, cheers. It's so coveted. It's this nice black box.
Oh.
It's
Spin
nice
it
sheen.
around.
What's on the
Do you
back
want to see it
side?
from all angles?
Oh, is it
Is that the
black?
nutrition
Yes,
facts?
it's more black.
Show me the undercarriage.
Oh.
Inappropriate. Here we go. And it has some great stuff in there. A water bottle. I heard it comes with a premium hoodie for all those suckers who just have regular hoodies. And we're even going to throw in the game just so you can talk about it. You don't want to wear it and not play the game. That's
How
a
do
little
they
weird.
win it?
So you're going to want to tweet at GameSpot using the hashtag GSGOTY. So keep those tweets coming at me. We already have some tweets coming in about Forza 5, which is very expected. And Devil's Rage says Forza 5 should win, even though Danny O'Dwyer will want FIFA 14 to take it. So he's calling you out.
He is a FIFA fan, but also
Yeah,
a Forza
he's a
fan.
shady, tainted Irishman.
What's going on? What is that?
Always going to want FIFA,
Crude.
even though it's not true. So keep those tweets coming in. People are always
Alright.
saying, oh, we got No Dead Rising 3. What?
No Dead Rising 3.
That's from somebody who's not played Dead
I'll
Rising
put
3.
that question to the table.
Say what?
There's nothing. Yeah, I don't know.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's
Kill a lot of zombies.
It's the least good Dead Rising game probably. It's still fun, but I don't know.
It's an ambitious game. You can give them
Is
that.
Because there's tons of zombies. Technically
Yeah.
ambitious, or like, but outside of that, design-wise, does it really take a lot of chances with the Dead Rising formula, or is it just sort of more?
It's the way it marries the way it marries the design with the technology. I think it earns a little bit of credit, but it's not enough to get it on this list.
It missed that sort of je ne sais quoi that those other games had, and I think possibly that's the time thing that they had going on with the other ones. I don't know. I just felt like when I played this one, it
they
felt
have that
more
mode that you can
sandboxy. Yeah, but it's not the same.
Just
I
so
don't
much
know.
sand.
Well, it's more that these other games kind of rise up a little bit more.
They dead rise up, am I right?
No. 'Cause
No, I
Dead
guess
Rising
they
you're not
don't
right.
then.
No,
No,
so
because
that's-
actually
yeah.
works
but whoever
that way.
whoever that person on the internet said about FIFA and Forza, I actually prefer Forza Motorsport.
Really?
Forza Motorsport is a great driving
Talk to
game.
me about
It's
it.
wonderful. I've never been a fan of the Forza series. I don't know particularly why. Maybe it's because I'm not really that into cars. Maybe it's because I sort of started getting into F1 a lot more in the past couple of years. But I adore that game. Like I love the Drivatar AI system. I love that when I take a turn properly, like using those triggers, and I can feel the bite and the traction. And then the guy in front of me's overdone it by accident, and he's broke, and dust is flying up, and he goes off course, and I just get in and nick it. And I love the fact that I can kind of do replays basically as much as I want as well, within reason. Like, I don't know, it's a really fun.
If there's a game that shows off what next gen can do, it's Forza. Like that just looks like you're watching real cars racing. In the same way that NBA 2K14 is, if you squint, it's like looking at real people. If you squint, it's like watching real racers.
I like to hear what you say a couple years from now, because I think looking back, we'll realize these are still look like video games, but they look great.
They still look like
they
video
look
games.
great. I don't know. I'd say it looks like real life, but it looks good.
Unless it's NBA, in which case.
Those
real
glares
life.
on the court are way too strong.
No court is polished that much.
No.
Yeah, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pass me the
yeah.
rock. Throw me the pigskin.
Uh-oh. All right, Danny's going to try to do his basketball slang, and we all know where that leads. But now we're going to actually head into the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era nominees. And, of course, because this was the year of both of those consoles flourishing with tons and tons of great games, we've got full 10 nominees. That was a 5. I should pull up this. We've got, let's try this with you two guys. 10 nominees for both of those systems, starting off with the PlayStation 3. There are some good ones in there, including one of the titans that we haven't talked about yet, Grand Theft Auto 5.
Indeed.
Yeah, I know Danny's played it once or twice on internet, but other than that...
GTA 5 is one of my favorite games ever made.
Ever made?
Yeah, and it's up against Bioshock Infinite, which is probably also one of my other favorite games ever made. I absolutely adore GTA 5. I often wonder if it's different being from Europe and playing these games, because maybe the feeling of stepping into this world is even more dramatic, that it really feels like you're kind of going on holidays to this amazing
for me it's just like
place.
going downtown. Like,
Smoke so many hoes every day. It's just like the exact same thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I love it, and it's never about the story or the characters. It's about the crazy world of being able to explore it, and then what they did with GTA Online and like taking the best parts of the free roaming aspects of GTA 4's multiplayer, and then kind of giving you stuff to do and permanency with the economy and whatnot. I just love it. I absolutely love GTA 5.
You can play the game in any way that you want to, and that's what I love about just the GTA franchise as a whole, but especially GTA 5.
Except if you want to like be a nice person who does reasonable things.
I tried to walk up to a lady just to keep her company, and she got all threatened. Like,
Hey, check out my gun!
no, I was just standing there, and she immediately assaulted
Like a
me.
creeper, Peter Brown.
With your pants off, and I was
That's not
That
acceptable.
might have been the problem with the gun comment right there.
All right, GTA 5, of course, garnering a lot of critical acclaim this year, but one PlayStation 3 exclusive has been Getting a lot of talk in the chat already, as Mary mentioned before. The Last of Us. I know all y'all played that one.
Last of Us was so good. Like that is one of my favorite PS3 games. And in a way, for me, it beats GTA 5 just because that story was so engaging. Like I feel like that's a tale that you really could not have told outside of a video game. Like parts of it were very cinematic, but part of it was also me experiencing Joel's journey.
It's almost on the complete opposite scale of the like third-person action game as GTA 5 because it's a super intimate story. It's it's not a vast world you can explore, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like a world that's been sort of wrapped around you. It actually does feel like you're taking a really intimate, small story in this much grander like horrible world. And that's the thing, is like the weird thing about The Last of Us, it reminded me of like reading The Road or something, where it's actually kind of horrible and it's difficult to play, and you'll finish a game session and actually be quite depressed, but you keep going back to it because it's just the most like, it's so engaging as like an emotionally engaging as a story.
And as a game, it fixed a lot of the problems that I had with like Uncharted.
Yeah.
So like in Uncharted, as soon as you get somebody's attention, you're pretty much done. Like it's a firefight from there on out. Whereas The Last of Us let you get someone's attention, but then run away and keep it as a stealth game. If you wanted to go all out guns blazing, you could technically do that.
The story and mood is so good that you forget that as an actual action game, it's wonderful as well.
Yeah.
And that competitive multiplayer is super good as well. I don't know how many of you folks got into it, but I definitely played. That's probably my most played multiplayer game this year. And I know I played with some Ryan McDonald and some other GameSpot staffers who loved it as well. Let's move on to another game exclusive to the PlayStation 3 and near and dear to Mr. Van Ord's heart.
Oh, yeah.
Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch.
Yeah, I think that game is kind of awesome.
Yeah, you do.
And I know it doesn't get quite the same love from some of my other peers in the offices, but I'm going to stick up for that game. Yeah, for Chris is one of those.
We've had
people.
words about
We
it.
have.
Studio Ghibli art.
It is, but it's not just about the art. It's about the way the art is used to craft this world that I really loved being a part of. It's this. It's just moving about the world. And how many JRPGs can you say, hey, I really just enjoyed moving around the world? It brought the overworld back for me in a big way.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I've played a JRPG that really brought that back in a big way for me. And you get to move through it on sea and the air, and that was just super fun. And plus, I just loved the story. And one of the best soundtracks of the year. I mean, I don't know, like we don't really do these special achievement awards for this, but I think it's worth pointing out. The soundtrack for Ni no Kuni is fantastic, and I feel bad that we don't also get to like recognize games like Monaco and some other things like that.
Just for their
awesome
soundtracks, which in the past GameSpot has done some very granular special achievement awards. This year, it's platform awards and then overall game of the year. And of course, all those winners are going to be announced starting tomorrow, rolled out over the rest of this week and next week. And you can tweet your thoughts about them to us at GSGOTY. And Mary, are people doing just that?
They are. We're getting a lot more comments and questions going on here of people telling you what you should have picked.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, we're getting some. Sakumaru is saying BioShock all day, every day, in all caps. So he's quite
emphatic.
serious about that. We're also getting some other people saying GTA. Gadu says GTA 5 lived up to its anticipation. It had variety and the stats don't lie. 1 billion in 2 days.
That's
So,
true. That's a
in your
powerful
face,
number.
statistically speaking. We're getting a lot more. A lot of people are saying Last of Us by a country mile, Gary T. Paul. So there's a three-way split going on here between a lot of the different games.
I feel like there's a lot of confusion about what sort of measuring statistics we're using to calibrate these awards. Country miles,
We use
sales
country.
sold, you
Yeah.
know. But thank you, folks, for chiming in. Keep it up on Twitter, in the Twitch chat, on GameSpot comments on Facebook. We love to hear it all from you. And I want to hear a little bit more from this table here about some of our other nominees, specifically BioShock Infinite.
BioShock Infinite was so, for me, a very divisive game. Like
Yeah.
I loved the combat, I loved the world, especially at the beginning, the way it was laid out, but it just didn't live up to its potential. For me personally, like having Elizabeth's powers be basically, I can bring some turrets and stuff here. You have the ability to open up tears in the fabric of space-time, and you just bring guns. Like,
Yeah, that part is sort of like pushed to the side a little bit. Like you said, it's just sort of like it's kept along the perimeter just so you know it's still there. But for me, yeah, the intro to that game, the world, it was very interesting and definitely caustic. And then about 2/3 in, I felt like I was just fighting waves of enemies. And I lost what was interesting in that game, which was exploring the world, discovering how these characters interacted and what that meant in the grander scale.
especially that finale. like that final boss fight. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't beat it yet.
Oh,
but
the final battle.
The final battle.
The final battle.
Really?
I loved. I don't. I think it's
Final
maybe
battle
because
was so good.
I think it's maybe because I mainlined the entire game. I like plowed through it in like 2 days. But
I did as well.
But the entire experience, like the shooting, I didn't play it on consoles. I actually more heavily prefer the PC version of it, just in terms of graphics and the accuracy and whatnot. But yeah, I absolutely love that game. I know it's divisive, and I think perhaps the reason why I liked it so much is because like it challenged me in so many different ways, like morally and whatnot. And I know it comes under a lot of like flack, especially about the racism thing. I actually sit on the opposite side of that. I think it kind of made me empathize with like the Irish plight in a way that no game had ever done before. And like not only that, but like in lots of different ways, I found it incredibly engaging and interesting. So when I came away from it, I thought, you know what? I've never had an experience like that playing a game, and that's probably why it's one of my favorite games ever, not alone this year.
And I know it gets a lot of, I love BioShock Infinite as well, so I'm gonna chime in with Danny on this one, and for a couple of reasons. Number one is I feel like it gets a lot of comparisons to BioShock and where the original BioShock did this better or that better. But one thing I feel like BioShock Infinite has that BioShock did not was the element of something that we can really truly relate to. I mean, in the end, how many people do you know that just love objectivism so much, and this is part of the fabric of their lives, and BioShock was great, but I didn't have any personal connection. On the other hand, with BioShock Infinite, as somebody who understands exactly how these people were looking at religion was the biggest thing for you. The Irish plight came into play. For me, I saw so much of what I had been taught about religion and Christianity growing up, that the symbolism was really haunting for me a lot of the time, and so the things that I had to think about that also tied to my own sort of quandaries of faith over my entire life. I saw them playing out in game form right there in front of me. And so I know it's easy to talk about where BioShock Infinite may not have lived up to expectation, but I feel like sometimes we miss out on these things that can truly have personal meaning to some of us that have seen, and have lived through some of these.
And that's one of the most powerful things about BioShock Infinite. Inspiring passions. Sorry to cut you off
here,
Peter. But we got to move on to the next batch of nominees for the Xbox 360. Here they are, the 10 best Xbox 360 games of 2013. So obviously a bunch of familiar faces and overlap with our PS3 nominees. Of course, you had your BioShock, your GTA 5, in your Assassin's Creed Black Flag, your Rayman Legends, but I want to start with the game that made Kevin literally squeal with delight while we were watching it. He said, ooh, now we get to talk about Metro Last Light.
Yeah, we totally get to talk about that.
Which is a game you love.
It is a game I love. It is a game I love a lot. And I liked Metro 2033, but I did not love Metro 2033. I love Metro Last Light for so many reasons. I love that when it takes time to really build its world, to really build its, to really craft some character to the place where you're doing all this stuff. And sometimes that can be boring, like in Killzone, for example, when there's just like all these periods where nothing's happening. But Metro Last Light uses that empty space. It uses that moment of wandering and walking to really do something. It really uses it to build world, and I think it's really fantastic because of that. And there's just so much. I loved getting up above the ground, outside of the tunnels, and really seeing how this world how our world has just been completely destroyed.
And it seems so harsh when you're underground too, and you're dealing as sort of like an outsider in this other half of society. And then you get above ground, and you're like, oh, that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, none of that matters.
This is where it sucks.
Yeah.
This is bad.
And then there's this moment where like this giant shrieking like gargoyle thing picks you up and then drops you into the water, and it's like, oh shit, that happened just now. So it's that kind of game though.
So much for navigating fragile political alliances in the Metro. Sky Beasts. All right, so that's Metro Last Light on our nominee list for Xbox 360. Another one that I certainly enjoyed the hell out of myself is Tomb Raider, which, did we have some other folks here who got a kick out of that one?
Man, those Tress physics.
Oh yeah, but you didn't get
not in this version of the game.
Nope.
Tress effects clearly not the thing that's making or breaking the game. For me, it was the because this is the Xbox 360 nomination, is what I mean.
The hair looks like junk in this one, but it's still a great game.
It's still a great game.
Yeah, Tomb Raider is one of those games that you almost forget came out this year because it's been so long. It's wonderful. It's the best Tomb Raider that's been made in a long time, and kind of in a weird way, I feel like it is because it kind of has stepped away from a lot of what what Tomb Raider became, like a much more of a I don't know. This game is more of an Uncharted game than it is a Tomb Raider game, and I don't think it suffers from it at all.
But a gritty reboot, not in a good way. Like you have so many games that go through that reboot phase.
Yeah, Tomb Raider did it like 4 times.
But
Seriously.
they
finally got it right.
It did.
It's true.
Yeah, and it looks good and it plays good. Like I like the different ways to explore the world that you didn't have in previous games. Like kind of being able to go out to tombs and choose. Like I'm gonna explore this.
It's an incredibly mechanical game. It's like everything is lined out in front of you. You've done 1 of 10. This is where this tomb is. Like you stop off at a campfire and then you can there's main mission and there's side missions. And I don't know. There was something like really nice and satisfying about it. About like it's one of those completionist games where you can actually legitimately complete everything in it without going, spending a ridiculous amount of time in it. And it was all really satisfying. I just thought as a design game, just in terms of like, it was very mechanically satisfying.
And I don't often get that completionist urge, Danny, but you're spot on. That is a game that I really desperately wanted to play more of and revisit stuff, and was thrilled to do it because they made the exploration so fun. Now, of course, we've listed our 10 nominees. We got a few more to talk about before we close out the 360 category. But, Mary, I am interested in the ones that people are clamoring at us about online. What do folks think about our nominees?
They're yelling at you.
Yay!
They have all sorts of things to say. Now, for Tomb Raider, I don't know how I felt about optional tombs. Do you guys remember the optional tombs? That was a little weird. But a lot of people are saying, OMG, Metro all the way. And we're getting a lot of Metros. Someone said, once again, it's just got to be GTA. All the other games mentioned are just not the same. They just don't even come close. So
They're not.
They are not the same.
They are not the same. And then we
Literal.
have Gaz Peterson, who said it has to be BioShock Infinite. Amazing world, amazing characters, amazing story. Simples.
It's that easy.
Is he
Yeah,
a
it was
meerkat?
awesome.
I don't think you
Cool.
guys get
Thanks,
those commercials.
thanks, Mary. Keep it coming, folks. We want to hear what you think. What did we omit? What is a no-brainer choice? One that we did include here and on the PlayStation 3 nominees that I want to talk about is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which for me, it's a downloadable title from Starbreeze Studios, and for me was one of the most emotionally affecting games of the year, and one that I thought just was ingenious, specifically in the way that you controlled the characters.
And that had a big impact on the storytelling as well, right?
Yes, it did, Peter.
That had a
Sure
big impact.
did.
That had a big impact in me walking one character forward very confidently and the other just kind of running against a wall, flailing visibly.
I kept getting them mixed up left and right. What I love about Brothers is that it's one of these games that, you know, it came from Starbreeze, but it's like this weird kind of emotionally affecting, like 3 to 4 hour story. That like when I think most people were kind of agnostic to it when it was coming out, but just over the months after it came out, more and more people were like, you have to play this game, you have to play this game. And then by the time Game of the Year came around, it was almost like required. Like, it was just like, you have to you cannot judge this unless you've actually played this game.
It was sort of the To the Moon of 2013 in a way.
That's a good comparison.
In that sense.
I like that, Kevin. All right, we got 2 more to talk about real quick. DMC, Devil May Cry.
Okay.
What?
I'm gonna stick up for this. Now, is
I
somebody
Devil May suck.
That is not your best work, O'Doyle.
I am a Devil May Cry fan, old Devil May Cry fan. So I really love Devil May Cry. Not so much Devil May Cry 2. We don't really talk about that.
We're talking about DMC.
And then Devil May Cry 3, I loved, even though it was hard.
Okay, but
and
the
I reviewed Devil May
new
Cry
one.
4, so I'm just saying that I'm coming from a place where I'm a fan too.
Yeah.
And I really like DMC a lot. And now, granted, I have this thing that I like platforms that sort of move into place as you move through the world, and so I kind of like that aspect of the
You
visual
don't have to
design.
move to try to jump on them, it just...
Well, I kind of like when environments shift as you move through them. So I admit that I am kind of a sucker for that stuff. But I just think it's super fun, and I really like the attitude of the game. And I think the art, I know a lot of people don't, but that's the thing. That's the thing, and they went out on a limb and they did something different, and some people don't appreciate it, some do. I think that it's just on its own terms. I just think it's super fun, and I really loved being there, and I had a lot of fun with the
it's
combat.
not perfect, but the combat, it's something that's easy to get into for someone like me who really hasn't cared about Devil May Cry. I jumped right in. I really enjoyed learning all the combos, and this is one of the first Devil May Cry games that I finished in a long time.
The only reason I kind of fell off, because I actually really did enjoy the story and the attitude and that sort of mood that it set. It was gorgeous looking as well.
Oh, yeah.
But it was the combat that kind of eventually was just too simplistic for my liking or whatever. But
I'm very simplistic, so this is nothing.
You guys are getting a great window into the heated discussions that have happened over the weeks as we've pulled these lists together and gotten our nominees all lined up. And we've got one more list of nominees for you. That is nominees for the PC Game of the Year. Glory to our Stotska. Papers,
Nice.
Please. What do you say, guys?
I love Papers, Please. I love Papers, Please before I went through the very similar procedure of actually trying to get a US visa. And then afterwards, I loved Papers, Please. It was like, yeah, that game's great. I love Papers, Please for so many different ways. It's such a, I just love a simple concept that's done really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And like, essentially what it is you're playing bureaucracy. Like, it's just a boring thing, but then they keep, it's that story, the like moral quandaries that come up that often don't seem to really matter. Like, sure, I'll leave this person in, and it's going to cost me like that much money. That's fine. And then by the end of the game, like, every single decision you make matters, and it makes you feel empathy for the type of people, like in the most horrible war crime situations that have had to make horrible decisions in the end, either for themselves or for the family, and sent other people, to death. Like, it's an insanely powerful game.
Where one guy gives you a passport, the next person in line will give you a note saying, please keep your mouth shut, but I am under extreme danger and I need asylum from my country. Like, you're the only person who can let me in. And you're like, well, I don't know, that looks kind of fake. Rejected. They just cart her away.
I gotta feed my family because
man.
their family will,
No, well, I don't know. She
That's-
could be a terrorist. And that's kind of the thing
That's
is
true.
you get these newspaper clippings between different levels. There's just like these moments of the current events, and that's sort of like leading you along this path of like, well, crap, I need to protect my country or my bank account.
Yeah.
Which one?
It's these quintessential PC, like what we think of it as PC games that would never have come out on console, and there were so many in our list this year. And Papers, Please is something it would never have gotten on a console. Like it really even wouldn't work that way. But we get these really awesome experiences because we're part of the PC fan group.
The fan group, the master race. As
I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, I know.
So let's talk the Stanley Parable, another one of those that's PC exclusive. And
Stanley Parable completely surprised me. Like I had people tell me you should play this game. Don't read anything about it. Don't know anything. And I went in completely blank slate, and I just played every ending that I could for like the next 4 hours, maybe it was 3 hours, and just tried and experimented with everything. The very first ending that I got was the one with the baby in the fire.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
so that's what's happened to me, is that everyone's told me not to read up about it and to play it.
Well, you
and I've
can't-
done
you
the
have
first
to.
part,
You've
but I haven't
ignored
done the second part. So sorry.
that's on you, O'Dwyer.
Yeah.
It's short. It's quick. You can get through it in about 2 hours, and you really should do that before any more of it's spoiled for you.
It's wonderfully inventive and just a sense of sort of delight and discovery at what the developers have laid out for you. Similar, not totally similar, but awkward segue
To Dota 2.
Gone Home.
Gone Home.
To Gone Home.
Yeah.
That game is super wonderful for a lot of reasons, and of course it's one of those games that opens up the is it a game debate, which is all silly. You can all discuss that later. It is a game, and we played it, and it's wonderful. And you go through this house, like kind of piecing a story together. And what's great, one of the best things about Gone Home is actually sort of one of the best things about Stanley Parable is the way that it toys with your notions about what it is when you first start. And that's my favorite thing. I mean, you can say a lot of great things about Gone Home, particularly the story, which is awesome, but also the way it begins making you think it's one type of game, and setting you up for one kind of scenario, and actually it being a completely different kind of game and scenario.
I think
that's super special.
In terms of how it how you progress through it, because it's in this like relatively small area, and you're given hardly any direction as to really where you're supposed to go. Just in terms of like the dynamic storytelling, the pacing of it, the fact that you always seem to really know where you go, you never really get lost. I just think it's an incredible like accomplishment in terms of level design and progression and anything else. I don't really understand how I was able to get through that game so easily and at a pace, because if you're playing any other first-person game in a tiny world like that, you just blitz around. But there was something about that game, whether it was the way they forced you to move around in it, the size of the fact that at the start you thought maybe it was a bit spooky, so
I
you were
was super
taking your
scared the
time.
entire
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
That's the
I
whole-
went door
that's
by
the
door.
whole big like thing for me though, is you think one thing, and it's funny because Carol and I had very different experiences. I kept turning on all of the lights early on because I was scared, and but you get this note like from like you see this thing about how you need to be constantly reminded to turn out the lights. It's a little bit of a self-acknowledging thing. But Carol was being dutiful. She would leave the room and turn off the light like a good girl.
But that's
and
when
I'd
the
be
ghosts
like,
come.
no, I'm scared.
All right, Mary Kish, what are they saying? Is it a game?
Yeah, you know, people are a little bit back and forth with that. A lot of people are always confused about these external experiences and whether or not, you know, when it's not the standard style of a game. But Chris Jeff, the old first name double, says, Gone Home, Papers, Please, and Stanley Parable are so amazing. Screw the haters. So there's some heavy fans that really like that no matter what it is, even if it's a little different. Just one more quick reminder, so please don't forget to tweet at GameSpot using the hashtag GSGOTY, because there's still a chance that you can win the Forza 5 pack.
And it's exclusive.
There's
only like a couple of those things in existence. We want to give it to you. Now, let's talk about two big PC games that are PC exclusives that like so many people played this year. Path of Exile and Dota 2. Who wants to start? Who's got the first one?
Dota 2.
All right, there we go. Danny
Dota 2. Dota 2 is a game I've heard.
Nailed it.
It came out this year. It's been in beta for a while, and a lot of people are ejecting it every single day. I don't know, man. I don't know about Dota 2. It's a great game that I don't want to play because I know I'll enjoy it too much. It's like StarCraft. It's like when I went to play StarCraft and then ended up playing StarCraft for 4 months and didn't play anything else.
I want to play more, but everyone is so mean to me because I'm not really great at these games. And so you go into your first match and everyone yells at you and they hate you, and it's
but it's kind of good because then I don't know. I'm very early on in my Dota 2. Like to the point where
you're a Padawan.
I'm awful, and my best friends back home are playing it with me, and even they're kind of sick of how bad I suck at it. But it's one of those games that you kind of have to say is one of the best games that came out this year, because the people who do play it and the people who do love it so much that they want you to play it.
And there are people on staff, just not us.
Oh, totally. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We have some huge Dota 2 fans on staff, and obviously the
Serene,
strategic.
Edge.
You know, the strategic depth to that game, the competitive aspects of that game just makes it a singular experience. Let's wrap up with Path of Exile. Kevin Van Ord, this is a game that you love a whole lot.
Yeah, good wrap-up. Path of Exile. It's great. But more importantly, well, not more importantly, it's free. So you can go and get it now and you can play it.
For free?
But for free. But even more, even beyond
How much?
For free.
But wait, there's more. Sorry.
0. So, but even beyond that, even if you paid $50 for it, like you would pay for another game, I'd say, yeah, you got to go out and you got to play this and you got to do it right now. It's, you know, in part it has, you know, it has grown from Blizzard's suffering over, you know, how people sort of took to Diablo 3, which is to say not everybody took to Diablo 3, and I didn't actually really like Diablo 3 all that much. So, but here is a game that sort of takes what we sort of wanted a Diablo 2 sequel to be, but then it only starts there, and then it really allows itself to grow from just a regular old, hey, I'm simply clicking on things until they die, and it becomes so much more than that through the way it brings you through the world, through the way it introduces you to the most ginormous skill tree you ever did see.
It's pretty big.
And it's pretty big, and what's interesting is I played it in a far different way than I've ever played a game like this before. Like ultimately I'm like running around as a witch, like I have like 15 minions with me at any given time, like 15 dudes just kind of doing my thing for me, and I'm like, this is pretty great.
And it's another one of those games where the people who've played it are so passionate about how good it is that you kind of feel like, I feel like it's it's the sort of the ace in the hole in this category, because maybe because of the time of the year it came out as well, it's quite recent, and because maybe it's free as well, that a lot of people maybe haven't given it a fair shout. But any of the folks in the office who've played it, I know are
I think that stigma is going away.
Slowly, yeah. Well, Dota, for instance, is another game that kind of represents that as well.
League of Legends, Hearthstone. There are lots of good
all the free games. You know, all those ones on Torrent Bay. You know, just so many free-to-play games. Right
Oh, shush. But I mean, that doesn't mean anything anymore, right? A game is a game is a game is a game. I think we've gotten to the point where you can almost say that. It's just a game is a game. And how you pay for it, it doesn't really mean anything about its quality.
And no matter how you look at it, 2013 has been a great year for games, as you've seen from our list of nominees that we've rolled out for you today. Of course, our Game of the Year nominees are going to come from these nominees as well, but we don't want to share them with you just yet because, hey, we need to share the winners first. And that's going to happen starting tomorrow with Game of the Year winners starting with the PlayStation Vita and then continuing every day until the big final reveal of the Game of the Year winners. We'll show you those dates in a sec, but speaking of winners, Mary Kish, who is the lucky winner of our Forza Motorsport 5? It's Super Pack premium
This
paddock version
Amazing
extravaganza.
Forza 5 paddock addiction. Addiction.
What?
It is addictive, but it's an addition.
Good
It's
save.
going to Kenny Vega at dead time from Ridgewood, New York. So he's getting this limited print paddock edition of Forza 5.
Yeah, Kenny!
Congratulations. This is all yours on all the insides as well.
Including the water bottle.
Yes, including
Wow.
water.
What about the
Water.
box?
It's very fancy. And so make sure to check your DM so we can ship you this package and get all your private details that we don't give to other people.
Because we're going to send you a video game.
Yeah, so congratulations.
All right, thanks, Mary, and thanks to all of you who chimed in during our discussion here during our nominee live stream special. Let's take a look at the dates. We're going to be rolling out our Game of the Year awards starting tomorrow with the PlayStation Vita version, and then every day from then on out, we're going to be revealing the platform Best of awards leading up to the Game of the Year, the big reveal. I want to thank my editors here, Kevin Van Ord.
Hey.
Yeah. Peter Brown.
Thanks, buddy.
Justin Haywald.
Thank you.
And Danny O'Dwyer.
Thanks, Chris.
And of course you, Mary Kish.
Why, thank you, Chris.
All right, and thank you folks for watching. This has been GameSpot's Game of the Year nominee live stream special. Stick with us as the winners are revealed starting tomorrow.
We know who wins.